Arizona basketball has its last tune-up before Wisconsin. What does that mean for the Wildcats? Because they certainly look the part.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. This show is brought to you today by FanDuel. Check out FanDuel. Put down $5. You can get $150 in free plays with that $5. Okay, now, here's the deal. Arizona Old Dominion. Listen, Old Dominion is not a very good basketball team. I think you could watch that game for about 3 minutes and you could ascertain that. Anybody could see that. But in the games like this, I'm far more interested in what a team looks like and where Arizona does kind of look in the grand scheme of things. And right now, Arizona pretty much checks off every single box. And I think that's the thing that you got to look at and be pretty darn impressed if you're an Arizona fan. And the thing that I'm going to keep going back to, and we're going to talk about this a lot tomorrow as well, is the height across the board is absolutely fantastic. You look at, you've got Tobe Awaka, the man of girth. You've got Trey Townsend up front. Both those guys are, you can tell, both those guys are going to be ready for Big 12 play. They are both good. But I think what's very, very intriguing about this Wildcats team then is who you bring in off the bench. You bring in a Henri Veesaar off the bench who, I'll be honest with you, I didn't think was going to ever be that good. I never thought that Henri was going to be able to take that next step and become the kind of basketball player that you look at and you're like, all right, well, he is going to be a problem for others. Henri Veesaar is a problem. He can finish around the hoop. He can block shots. He can shoot three-pointers. He's just been very, very impressive for the Arizona Wildcats. And honestly, I don't think that there's really any other way to put it that this has been a massive, massive job by Tommy Lloyd. And then Mo Crevis. You can just tell Mo Crevis, you can see why people think that he is going to play in the NBA. He's got a nice little touch from three-point range. He's a bigger dude. He can do a lot of things. Like I said, watching Mo Crevis, you can tell that is the proverbial adage that his best basketball days are clearly still in front of him. Just a very, very impressive player all the way around. But that big man rotation up front is going to be nasty. And I think what's exciting about it too is that when you're playing the Houstons, when you're playing the Kansases, when you're playing those teams, you're going to need a lot of different bodies you can throw at. And again, they're not just roster filler. I think we've seen in the past where you had some players come in and they just weren't really that good. This year, it's a little bit different. This year, you know that some of these dudes coming in, these guys can play, and I think that's what's exciting about this. And from an Arizona perspective and a skill development perspective, I think Tommy Lloyd has shown that he can. Some of these guys that he brings in, he can really turn into top-notch basketball players. So far, so good when it comes to Arizona, but up front, very, very impressive. And the thing about it, too, is that these guys all have a different variety of skills. We've seen Trey Townsend before where he can hit threes. We've seen Henri Veesaar hit threes. Mo Crevis can hit threes. Now, I don't think that Tobe Awaka can probably hit threes, but his job is always going to be to be that guy down low that's getting rebounds, that's getting the garbage points. By the way, and he's a good finisher. There's players in the past that have been able to get those boards, but they weren't going to necessarily be great finishers around the basket. The way that he maneuvers his body it's very impressive. You don't see a lot of that. Look at Keyshawn Johnson last year, and Keyshawn was obviously a very good basketball player, but Keyshawn didn't have that inherent ability to finish around the basket the way that Tobe Awaka does, and Awaka just takes up a ton of space. That's the other thing about him. You watch him and you're like, man, that guy just kind of gets it. And I think that's, like I said, if you're an Arizona fan, you got to be pretty excited about everything that's going on down there. And then you look at we're going to get to a little bit of a talk here about the perimeter in a second, but I think Tommy Lloyd also deserves a lot of credit for this though, because last year there were times, like I said, Umar Ballo was tough, but I don't know that Arizona in a weird way was ever going to beat up teams. And from a skill perspective, this team can beat you up, or it can get it can beat you up, or it can finish around the basket, or it can beat you with skill. that is a departure from years past, and I think something that Arizona fans should look at and be very, very excited about. As we always talk about, Tommy Lloyd takes inventory during the offseason, and one thing that he has done is he was able to totally change this team around. And again, we're going to talk about it a little bit more tomorrow, but it's a nine-man deep situation, and they all have different aspects that they bring to the table that that are going to be exciting for Arizona fans, I think, going forward to watch. Now, we're going to talk about what we have on the perimeter here in just a second, because he did an equally good job there. But first, we need to talk about something else. FanDuel. Check it out, FanDuel. You got football, you got basketball here. Those are the two sports that I think that most people care about. Football and basketball, all kinds of really good stuff at FanDuel. Here's the deal. You can get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Check it out. Again, when you got basketball and you got football here, you know that there's a lot of good things right around the corner. So again, check that out. FanDuel. You will thank me later on this one. You absolutely will thank me later. But again, NFL, NBA, college basketball, college football, it's all here. Hop in there. When you get a hunch during the game, FanDuel is the place that you want to go. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk about the skill perspective in the backcourt, because that's quite good as well. Look at last year, and again, it's an addition by subtraction type thing. But getting Kylan Boswell out of there and getting Jaden Bradley in has just been such a breath of fresh air. Bradley is the consummate professional. You watch him and you're like, okay, he wants it from a defensive perspective, and minutes aren't being promised to anybody. Brad Alice made a really good point that, minutes aren't being promised to anybody, and I think that's something that last year's team and maybe the years before his team maybe didn't necessarily have. You had guys that were essentially being promised that, okay, you're going to play, no matter what happens, you're going to play an X amount of minutes, and I think that led to complacency. I think that led to some issues that probably just weren't able to ever really be rectified, because you had a player who knew that no matter what he did, he was going to be able to play. And I think, that just to me isn't sustainable at the highest level of college basketball. So Jaden Bradley in there from that defensive shooting perspective, very, very good. Then you've also got you've got a player in Caleb Love that seems to be much more under control. Now, again, we're going to find out exactly how this all does play out as the season goes on. But right now, I think you got to be pretty happy about how he is playing. He has been very, very good for Arizona. And not only has he been good for Arizona, I don't believe that he's ever going to play in the NBA, but what he is showing, though, is that if he can be a little bit more efficient, the only chance he has is to be a little bit more efficient and to be somebody that plays under control and facilitates for others, and he's shown that he can do that. I've always felt that there's no reason that he can't be in that 40% or that 45% from the field and be shooting 5-6 free throws per game, because he can get to the hoop. Continue to do that. We've seen that. KJ Lewis as well, Tucson's finest. That is the perimeter that I think that Arizona has had that is best equipped to be able to go into a college basketball setting and be able to beat some really good teams. It's exciting to see what they could possibly do. And honestly, I think we're going to see a team in Arizona that is it's going to be Tommy Lloyd's best team. I really do believe that. And then, again, you bring in a Carter Bryant off the bench. This dude's going to be an NBA player. At what level, who knows? But he's got the world at his fingertips. And then ADO. I know a lot of people are a little bit out on ADO. I'm not. I like a guy that's going to come in and shoot 3-pointers, and not only shoot 3-pointers, but shoot with really hunt his shots. If he gets 3 open shots in a row, he's going to take them. Those are the guys that also can shoot you. They can shoot you out of a game, but it's also on Tommy Lloyd to know that, all right, well, I can't really play him this game because he's going to shoot me out of the game. So you get that, or you also can have a player like him that you're like, all right, well, he's going to shoot me out of the game, but he can also shoot me right into the game. But either way, he's a player that hunts his own shots. You love to see that because a lot in this day and age, I think you get some players that just aren't necessarily those good shooters, and Del Orso is that dude. But I think what we've also seen too is that Arizona legitimately goes 9 deep. And when I say legitimately goes 9 deep, they're all going to have games. They're all going to play throughout the season. And I think with Arizona, you also know that Tommy Lloyd is going to give them every opportunity on a given day to be able to show what they can do. And watching, or just like I said, just watching this team, it just feels a little bit different. Last year's team was very good, but like I said, there were still drawbacks. You still struggled, where are you going to make plays off the bounce? Where are you going to be able to do things like that? At this stage in the game, you know where Arizona is at. Now, the real season is about to start here, and because when the real season starts, that's where it's going to get very, very interesting for the Arizona Wildcats, and we're going to find out things fast. But first, game time. Now, you might say to yourself, man, I want to go to some of these games, but I don't know where to get tickets. Game Time is the place where you need to go there and you can get it. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time app. What time is it? Game time. Woo. All right, now Arizona's going to have some big contests this season. You're going to be going into the Big 12. You're going to be going into, Kansas. You're going to be playing in a bunch of high-profile arenas. Game Time says, help us help you. So go to Game Time and, like I said, download the Game Time app and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Check out Game Time, another one of these ones. You're going to thank me later. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk a little bit about where we are at now when it comes to Arizona basketball and Wisconsin. The games get real now. Everything gets started at Wisconsin. I'm guessing Arizona is going to go into Madison and probably be about a 3-point favorite, something like that. That's a game they could definitely lose. I expect Arizona to win that game because, honestly, I think Arizona's got better players than Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin is kind of the typical Big Ten team that gets, you're going to be maxed out in basically August. You're not going to get a lot better. Arizona's got better players, and Arizona's got better players. You look at that 1 through 9 for Arizona, and we're going to break this down in more depth later on in the week. But you look at that 1 through 9 for Arizona, and it's just better. It's just better than anything that they have to offer, and that's where I expect them to win that game. Arizona can also win in a variety of different ways, and I think that's also something that's kind of intriguing. Is that Arizona can beat you? Arizona can beat you from we can beat you up down low, and not only beat you up down low, we can beat you from the perimeter, and can get out and run, or in a slowdown game. That's something that's a little bit different, I think, from Tommy Lloyd's teams, and why I think they're better equipped come March. So we will find out, but this is going to be your first big game of the season. This is going to be a game where, again, this is a viable opponent in a hostile environment. They are going to be honoring one of the Wisconsin teams that beat Arizona to get to the Final Four, and then I think the national championship. So that might just give a little bit of an added spice to the rivalry, but it's all systems go at this point. And we're going to talk tomorrow about the great job that Tommy Lloyd did this offseason, because he did a remarkable job this offseason coming up with roster pieces that fit. And, when you look at this team, that is the thing that I keep coming back to. These pieces all fit together. And that is something that, you got to give him a lot of credit on, because, in the years past, there were some things that I think were lacking. He was able to get this done, and I think that's why that's why it's exciting. Now, we're going to talk tomorrow, like I said, about how you have Arizona, how this all came to pass. We're also going to talk a little bit about Arizona football later in the week, what this game against Houston means for the Cats. Then we're also going to talk a little bit about, what should we talk about? We are going to also talk then about Arizona, Wisconsin, the matchups and everything you need to know. But it is all systems go at this point for the Wildcats. Again, this is a good team. This team, in my opinion, matches up with about any team in the country. And, when you're Arizona basketball, that's kind of what you're expecting. You expect to be able to match up with about any team in the country. So, on that note, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. Bear down, back the A.